I didn't tell him I was working the overnight shift on Christmas Eve. I didn't tell him that his mother had specifically requested I stay away from their annual charity gala. And I definitely didn't tell him that the man whose life I saved that night was the biggest donor to his family's foundation. My phone buzzed at 3:47 p.m. on December 18th. I was restocking Trauma Bay supplies when I saw my fiancé David's name flash across the screen. "Hey babe, quick question." His voice had that careful tone he used when he was about to say something I wouldn't like. "So, Mom's having her Christmas Eve thing at the country club this year? The really fancy one. Black tie. You know how she gets about these events." I wiped down the counter with disinfectant, phone wedged between my shoulder and ear. "Okay, well, she mentioned that maybe it would be better if you sat this one out. Just this year. She has some really important donors coming, and you know how she is about first impressions and all that." I stopped wiping. "David, we've been together for 3 years. I've met your family a dozen times." I know, but this is different. This is her big charity thing. She's raised like $2 million for the children's hospital, and she just thinks—" He trailed off. "She thinks what?" He sighed. "She thinks it might be awkward explaining what you do to the donors." I looked down at my scrubs, navy blue, embroidered with Mercy General Emergency Department across the chest. I'd just finished a double shift. My feet hurt. There was still blood on my sneakers from the motorcycle accident we'd gotten at 2 a.m., explaining that I'm an ER nurse. She didn't say it like that. She said the donors are all corporate executives and venture capitalists, and they like to network at these things. And she's worried there won't be much for you to talk about with them. She's just trying to make sure the evening goes smoothly. "For the children's hospital," I said flatly. "The hospital where sick children are treated by nurses." "Rachel, come on, don't make this a thing." "I'm not making it anything. Your mother is uninviting me from Christmas because I'm a nurse." "She's not uninviting you from Christmas. We'll do Christmas dinner at my apartment, just the two of us. This is just one event, one night. Can you please just go along with it?" For me. I closed my eyes. I'd heard this before in different variations. When his mother suggested I might want to think about going back to school for something more substantial. When his sister asked if I'd ever considered pharmaceutical sales instead, since I already knew about medicine. When his father asked if my hospital had good benefits. At least. "Sure," I said. "Whatever makes things easier." "Thank you. I love you. I'll make it up to you. I promise." He hung up before I could respond. My coworker, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway holding 2 coffees. "You look like you need this." I took the cup. "David's mother doesn't want me at her Christmas gala. Bad optics." "I'm just a nurse," Jennifer snorted. "Just a nurse. Yeah, we only keep people from dying. Super low-level stuff." She's raising money for children's hospitals, though. The irony is apparently lost on her. Of course it is. These people always think healthcare workers are noble in theory, disposable in practice. She leaned against the counter. "You working Christmas Eve?" "Yeah, volunteered for it. Holiday pay is time and a half, and now I have nowhere else to be." "Same. At least we can be bitter together." I managed to smile. "Sounds perfect." What I didn't tell Jennifer was how much it actually hurt. Not just David's mother's rejection, but David's acceptance of it. 3 years together, and he still wouldn't stand up to his family. 3 years, and he still saw me as someone who needed to be hidden away when the important people were around. The next 6 days passed in a blur of shifts. I picked up extra hours, anything to avoid thinking about Christmas Eve, about sitting alone in David's apartment while he smiled and worked with people his mother deemed worthy. December 24th, I arrived at work at 6 p.m. for the overnight shift. The ER was already busy. It always was on holidays. People who'd been ignoring chest pain finally came in when their family made them. Cooking accidents, stress-induced everything. And inevitably, car accidents from people rushing to get to celebrations. By 10 p.m., we'd seen 2 heart attacks, a kitchen fire victim, and a kid who'd stuck a jingle bell up his nose. I was running on coffee and muscle memory. At 10:47 p.m., the ambulance bay doors flew open. Incoming 56-year-old male, unresponsive, possible cardiac arrest. They were performing CPR in the ambulance. I ran. We all did. That's what people don't understand about emergency medicine. When the call comes, nothing else exists. Not your tired feet, not your personal problems, not anything. There's just the patient and the clock. They wheeled him in. Expensive suit, probably tailored, gold watch, even unconscious and dying. He looked like money. He collapsed at some event, the paramedic said, still doing compressions. Country club, black tie thing. Someone there knew CPR. Kept him alive until we arrived. The country club, David's mother's gala. This man had been at the event I'd been uninvited from. I shoved the thought away. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the fact that his heart had stopped and we needed to start it again. Get me the crash cart. Someone call cardiology. I need an EKG stat. We worked. That's the only word for it. We worked like a machine. Every person knowing exactly what to do, when to do it. I'd been doing this for 7 years. 7 years of overnight shifts and holiday pay and people's worst moments. 7 years of being just a nurse. Compressions, intubation, medications pushed, defibrillator charged. Clear. His body jerked. We all stared at the monitor. Nothing. Still flatline again. Charged to 300. Clear. Come on. Come on. The monitor beeped. One beat, then another, then a rhythm, shaky, but there. We got him. I said, get him stabilized and up to the cardiac ICU. Someone page Dr. Morrison. Tell him we're sending up a critical. The team moved. I stepped back, pulling off my gloves. My hands were shaking. They always did after a save. The adrenaline had to go somewhere. Jennifer appeared beside me. Nice work. That was close. Too close. If whoever did CPR at that event hadn't known what they were doing, he'd be dead. You should tell them that. Positive reinforcement for bystander CPR. She glanced at the patient's chart. Thomas Reynolds. Huh, that name sounds familiar. I looked. Thomas Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Tech, venture capitalist, major philanthropist. I'd seen his name on buildings around the city. The man I just saved had been at David's mother's gala, had probably written a massive check to her foundation, was probably exactly the kind of person she wanted David to network with, the kind of person more important than me. I felt something hard settle in my chest. Not anger exactly, something colder, something like clarity. I'm taking my break, I told Jennifer. I went to the break room, pulled out my phone. 3 texts from David. Gala is amazing. Mom raised $2.3 million. Wish you were here though. Love you. Hey, one of the big donors just collapsed. Someone's doing CPR. Crazy night. I stared at that last text. Someone's doing CPR. Someone just saved Thomas Reynolds' life with CPR. And then we'd saved it again. And David had no idea I was part of that. No idea that while his mother was smoothing donors and collecting checks for children's hospitals, actual healthcare workers were doing the real work of keeping people alive. I didn't text back. I went back to work. The rest of the shift was standard chaos. By the time 7 a.m. rolled around, I was dead on my feet. I changed out of my scrubs, grabbed my bag, and headed for the parking garage. My phone rang. David, Rachel. Oh my God, are you okay? I just heard what about the hospital? That guy who collapsed at Mom's event last night. They brought him to Mercy General to your ER. Were you there? Did you see him? I unlocked my car. Yeah, I was there. Is he okay? Everyone's been freaking out. He's like a huge deal. Thomas Reynolds. He basically funds half the tech startups in the city. He's stable in the cardiac ICU. Thank God. Mom was beside herself. She thought he was going to die at her event. It would have been a disaster. A disaster? Not because a human being would have died, but because it would have looked bad. Good thing someone knew CPR, I said. Right. It was actually Mom's friend Patricia. She took a class last year. She's basically a hero. I closed my eyes. Patricia did compressions for maybe 8 minutes. We worked on him for 45. But sure, Patricia was the hero. I have to go, I said. I'm tired. Okay, Merry Christmas, babe. I'll come over later with your present. Sure, Merry Christmas. I drove home in silence, showered, fell into bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Thomas Reynolds' face, kept feeling his ribs crack under my hands during compressions, kept hearing the monitor flatline, Kept thinking about David's mother raising money for hospitals while looking down on the people who actually worked in them. I must have eventually slept because my phone woke me at 2 p.m. Unknown number. Hello, is this Rachel Chen? A woman's voice, professional. Yes, this is Angela Morrison. I'm Thomas Reynolds' daughter. I got your name from the hospital. You were one of the nurses who saved my father's life last night. I sat up. Yes, I was part of the team. I wanted to call and thank you personally. The doctors told me if you hadn't acted as quickly as you did, if your team hadn't been so skilled, her voice cracked, he wouldn't have made it. You gave me my father back. You gave my kids their grandfather back. My throat tightened. I'm glad we could help. How's he doing? Better, awake, complaining about the hospital food, which the doctors say is a good sign. She laughed, shaky. He wants to thank you himself. I know you must be exhausted after your shift. I can come by tomorrow. Thank you. Really, I don't know how to. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. After we hung up, I lay back down, stared at the ceiling. David came over at 5 p.m. with Thai food and a wrapped present. Merry Christmas. He kissed me. You look exhausted. Long shift. We ate. He talked about the gala, about the donors, about his mother's success. I half listened. Oh, and guess what? Thomas Reynolds woke up today. He's going to be fine. Mom is so relieved. He's promised to double his donation to the foundation. That's great, I said. His daughter apparently called the hospital to thank everyone. Real class act, from what Mom said. He reached across the table for my hand. Open your present. I unwrapped it. A necklace. Delicate. Expensive. Beautiful. David, this is too much. You deserve it. I know Christmas was weird this year, but next year will be different, I promise. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd been with for 3 years. This man who loved me but still let his mother exclude me. This man who had no idea I'd saved Thomas Reynolds' life, and probably never would, because it wouldn't occur to him that I was capable of something that important. We need to talk, I said. His face fell. Those are never good words. Your mother uninvited me from her gala. You didn't stand up for me. You just accepted it. Rachel, we've been over this. It was one night. It's not about one night. It's about the fact that your family has never respected what I do, and you've never made them. That's not fair. They just don't understand healthcare. Your mother raises millions for children's hospitals, David. She understands healthcare enough to profit from it socially. She just doesn't respect the people who actually do the work. She respects you. She thinks I'm an embarrassment. She thinks my job is beneath your family, and you agree with her. I don't. Then why wasn't I at that gala? He stood up, frustrated. Because I wanted one night where we didn't have to deal with explaining things. One night where I didn't have to watch you get uncomfortable when people ask what you do and then change the subject. One night where things were just easy. The silence after his words was deafening. Easy, I repeated. I make things difficult. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. I stood up. You know what? The man who collapsed at your mother's event, Thomas Reynolds, I saved his life. Me and my team. We brought him back from the dead. We're the reason he's alive to double his donation. We're the reason his daughter still has a father. We're the reason his grandkids didn't lose their grandfather on Christmas. David stared at me. You what? I was working the shift when they brought him in. I was the one running the code. Me, the embarrassing nurse. The one not worth explaining to donors. Rachel, I didn't know. No, you didn't, because you didn't ask. You didn't think to ask if I'd been part of saving him because it didn't occur to you that I could be part of something that important. I'm just a nurse. Just someone who brings in a decent paycheck, but not enough prestige for your mother's country club friends. That's not true, isn't it? Be honest, David. If I was a doctor, would your mother have uninvited me? He opened his mouth, closed it. That was answer enough. I took off the necklace, set it on the table. I think you should go, Rachel. Come on, we can work through this. Can we? Because I don't think your mother is going to suddenly start respecting nurses. And I don't think you're going to suddenly start standing up to her. And I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being hidden away when it's convenient. So what? We're done 3 years and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself. Finally, he left. I sat in the silence of my apartment and cried. Not because I doubted my decision, but because 3 years still meant something, even when they weren't the right 3 years. The next day, I visited Thomas Reynolds at the hospital. He was sitting up in bed looking remarkably good for someone who'd been dead 12 hours ago. "Rachel Chen," he said, reaching for my hand. "The woman who saved my life. I was part of a team, Mr. Reynolds. Please call me Tom. And I know you were part of a team. I've had about 15 different doctors and nurses in here, and every single one of them said you were the one who kept them alive while they stabilized me." He squeezed my hand. "Thank you, truly." His daughter, Angela, was there along with 2 teenagers who had to be his grandkids. They all thanked me. The grandkids hugged me. I tried not to cry. The doctors tell me I need to make some lifestyle changes. Tom said less stress, more sleep, actual vacations. Apparently, collapsing at charity galas is my body's way of saying I've been doing too much. "That sounds like good advice," I said. "I'm also told that the woman who did CPR on me before the ambulance arrived, Patricia something, she only knew how because she'd taken a class funded by a grant I gave to the community center last year." He smiled. "Funny how things come around. I fund CPR training. Someone uses that training on me, and then your team finishes the job. It's a good system when it works," I said. "You know what else is a good system? Proper funding for emergency services, proper staffing, proper pay for nurses who save lives." He leaned back against his pillows. "I'm on the board of Mercy General, have been for years, mostly writing checks and showing up to meetings, but I think I've been focused on the wrong things. Buildings and equipment are important, but the people are what matter. People like you." "Thank you, sir. That means a lot. I'd like to do something for you, for saving my life, name it." I thought about that. Thought about what I could ask for. Money? He'd probably give it a promotion. He could make a call. But none of that felt right. The ER needs more staff. I said, "We're chronically understaffed. Nurses are burning out. If you want to do something, fund nursing positions, competitive pay, good benefits, make it so we can actually take care of patients without running ourselves into the ground." He nodded slowly. "Done. I'll talk to the board next week. We'll create a fund specifically for ER nursing positions. The Rachel Chen Emergency Nursing Fund. You don't have to name it after me. I want to. You saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you and others like you can keep saving lives without sacrificing yourselves in the process." I left the hospital feeling lighter than I had in weeks, maybe even years. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. "David's mother, Rachel. This is Catherine Whitmore, David's mother. I think we need to talk." "Okay," I said carefully. "I heard about Thomas Reynolds, that you were part of the team that saved him." "I was. Tom called me yesterday. He's on the board of the foundation I work with. He told me about your conversation, about the nursing fund he's creating. He was quite impressed with you." "That's kind of him." There was a pause. "He also mentioned that you were David's fiancé, that you'd been together for 3 years. I didn't realize you were that serious." Of course she didn't, because she'd never bothered to actually get to know me. I said we're not anymore." "Oh." David didn't mention. Another pause. "I owe you an apology. Tom made it quite clear that I was foolish to exclude you from the gala. He said anyone capable of saving his life was more than worthy of attending any event. He was quite forceful about it. You don't need to apologize because Tom Reynolds told you to." "Mrs. Whitmore, Catherine, please. And you're right. I should apologize, because it was wrong. I made assumptions about you, about your career, that weren't fair. I've spent so much time around corporate executives and venture capitalists that I forgot that the real important work is done by people like you, people who actually save lives instead of just writing checks. I appreciate that," I said, and I did, even though I knew she only appreciated it now because someone she considered important had told her to. "Is there any chance you and David might reconcile? He's been miserable." "I don't think so. David is a good person, but he needs to figure out what he actually believes in, instead of just going along with what makes things easy. Until he does that, we're not going to work." "That's fair and mature. You're clearly better than what my son gave you credit for." After we hung up, I texted David. "Your mom called. I appreciate the apology, but we're still done." I hope you find someone who fits into your world better than I did. Take care. He texted back immediately. You fit just fine. I was the one who didn't. Maybe that was true. Maybe he'd grow from this. I hoped he would. 3 weeks later, I was back at work on a random Tuesday night when the ER administrator came to find me. Rachel, can you come to my office? I followed her, running through every possible reason I could be in trouble. Had I forgotten to file paperwork? Missed a required training? She sat down, gestured for me to do the same. I have good news. The hospital board just approved a massive funding increase for ER nursing positions. They're creating 10 new full-time positions, all with significantly better pay and benefits than current standard. That's amazing. It's thanks to Thomas Reynolds. He's personally funding what he's calling the Rachel Chen Emergency Nursing Excellence Fund. $6 million over 5 years, specifically for ER nursing recruitment and retention. She smiled. He also specifically requested that you be promoted to charge nurse with a substantial raise if you're interested. I sat back. $6 million, 10 new positions, a promotion. I'm interested, I said. Good, you've earned it. And Rachel, thank you for saving Tom's life, for advocating for better staffing, for being exactly the kind of nurse we need leading this department. I walked out of her office and back into the ER. Jennifer was at the nurse's station. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I just got promoted to charge nurse, and Tom Reynolds is funding 10 new nursing positions. Jennifer's eyes went wide. What? Are you serious? Dead serious. Holy Rachel, that's amazing, she hugged me. We're going to have actual backup, actual staffing. We might be able to take lunch breaks. Crazy concept, I said, but I was smiling. That night, I worked my shift with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Not because of the promotion, though that was wonderful. Not because of the vindication of having Tom Reynolds prove my worth to David's family, though I'd be lying if I said that didn't feel good, but because I'd chosen myself. I'd set a boundary and held it. I'd walked away from someone who couldn't see my value, and I'd found it myself instead. 6 months later, the new nurses started. The ER ran more smoothly than it had in years. I was good at being charge nurse, it turned out. Good at managing people, at advocating for my staff, at making sure we had what we needed. Tom Reynolds came by sometimes, checking on his investment. He always made a point to thank me again, and I always told him he didn't need to. His daughter, Angela, and I became friends. She was a corporate lawyer, brilliant and funny, and we met for coffee every few weeks. David sent me a text on what would have been our 4-year anniversary. I'm sorry I couldn't be who you needed. You deserved better. I hope you're happy. I texted back. I am. I hope you are too. And I meant it because I was happy. Not because I'd gotten revenge, though there was something satisfying about David's mother having to face her own prejudices. Not because I'd been proven right, though that helped, but because I'd finally learned that my worth wasn't determined by who accepted me into their world. It was determined by the lives I saved, the people I helped, the work I did every single day. I was just a nurse, and that was enough. More than enough.